We hope you had a good lunch. We're going to explore the challenges and the opportunities of the transition now from a corporate perspective. I'm delighted to have Magda, Chambriard, the CEO of Petrobras. Petrobras needs no introduction, the Brazilian oil giant. And William Lin is with me as well, EVP, Gas and Low Carbon Energy at BP Group. Magda, William, thank you very much indeed for joining me on this panel. Magda, let me start with you and the Petrobras experience. Leading a just energy transition. Minister Puri was talking about this, making energy affordable and expanding oil and gas production in Brazil. How do you reconcile these seemingly two conflicting objectives?
Okay, Siri Jegarajah, my moderator, thanks for the question, but first I want to thank the Honorable Minister Rajat Puri for this kind invitation. I want to greet Arun, Kumar, Singh, Chairman and CEO of ONGC that was to be here. I don't know if he's coming or not. William Lin, Vice President from BP Group and our partner. Ambassador of Brazil in India, Kenneth Felix, and all other authorities and audience that is here hearing us. It is important to say that we in Brazil and in Petrobras, we do believe that it is perfectly possible to reconcile petroleum exploration and production and energy transition. And this is the story of Brazil. And this story begins in the years 1970s when the petroleum in Brazil became very expensive. At that time, Brazil was spending a lot importing petroleum. The war in the Middle East changed things and make petroleum much more expensive for us. And the Brazilian government decided, using Petrobras as a pillar, to introduce ethanol in the energy mix as a feedstock to light fleet. At that time, Petrobras worked a lot to make this possible, and after years, it became a reality in Brazil. In the beginning of the years 2000, we did the same thing with biodiesel. So the story of Petrobras is to increase the exploration and production of oil and gas gradually, together with the production of biofuels being ethanol and biodiesel. We started with ethanol, and we took advantage with a unique case that we have in Brazil, which is having a light fleet as a flex fuel fleet. So our light vehicles can use both ethanol and gasoline at the same time, and the driver can choose if it uses one or another in the gas station. Recently, in Petrobras, we did our strategic plan considering, again, using Petrobras as the main investment. Petrobras exploration and production is the main investment, but you also have investments in energy transition, and this means ethanol, biodiesel, this means eolic, solar, and all these diverse sources of energy All of these is included in our strategic plan. We use, repeat the question, please.
Yes. How are you approaching the energy transition? You talked, Magda, about how Brazil was a pioneer of biofuels. And let me bring in the Petrobras strategy as well. And you and I were talking about this. And the strategy and the strategic vision is to develop and not forget about the wealth of oil and gas resources that you have in the pre-salt basins, and use that revenue, channel that revenue into the renewable vision at Petronas. So just tell us where you are with that strategy.
Nowadays, we are developing the pre-salt. This is our key investment. But besides of this, we continue using our biofuels, means ethanol and biodiesel, and we are also working in making greener projects using solar and eolic to make our products, oil products, greener. So with this, we are willing to transform gray hydrogen, for example, in green energy. We are increasing the amount of, we have a kind of special product, which is a diesel co-processed with vegetable oil, making a diesel so perfect that using the mix, let me come back. I think I used the translation to make all these stories.
Of course, no, I think you're making a very eloquent case for how Brazil has pioneered a sustainable fuel revolution for the past 50 years. And Magda, it's ethanol, biodiesel, and co-processing that you are focusing on there.
We start with putting together crude oil and vegetable oil to refine together and make a co-processed diesel. And we are also ending a trial to make co-processed aviation fuel as well. So we already have 7% vegetable oil in our diesel. It is a Petrobras patent. And we are ending a trial to have 1% of vegetable oil in our aviation fuel as well. So the story of Petrobras is the story to help Brazil with the energetic sustainability. We start supporting Brazil with the insertion of ethanol. We continue supporting Brazil with the insertion of biodiesel. And this was not because energy transition, but this was because energy sustainability. When we start with ethanol, Brazil was importing around half percent of the Brazilian imports were crude oil. So this was a very high money for Brazil.
Yes.
It was very expensive to us to continue importing all this crude oil. And that's why the government at that time starts investing and asking Petrobras to support the insertion of a biofuel, which is in the 70s, the ethanol. The same happened in the beginning of the year 2000, when Brazil decided to insert biodiesel, because we had the insertion of biofuel as ethanol in light fleet, but you should have something to heavy fleet. So that's why we put the biodiesel in the diesel to reduce imports.
Magda, if I can say, I think I speak for everyone when we applaud Brazil's leadership, and its leadership that India has taken in developing the Global Biofuel Alliance. And I know that India and Brazil are working very closely to take that to this next level. William, if I can turn to you, there is a lot in what Magda has said about sustainable policy, the way forward, while continuing to focus on gas as a transition fuel that resonates with the work that you're doing at BP. Just talk to us about how you are working not only with India, ONGC deal with BP speaks to that to enhance production at Mumbai High, but talk to us how you are working with producers in Brazil to scale natural gas and sustainable ethanol.
Yeah, thanks, Sri. I also want to thank Minister Puri and the government of India for the kind invitation for me to be here on this panel. It's great to see Magda. As she said, Petrobras is a very, very close partner. And this is my fourth or fifth India Energy Week. And each time there's more and more attendees and more energy and excitement around the conference. So really a pleasure to be here. Let me just say a few things. I mean, in the matter of getting the balance right, I think you heard this morning, I thought you did a great job, by the way, mediating the morning session, but I thought the ministers all were very open, and we talked about the importance of balance. Is that I took away the big message was, you know, we need all forms of energy. We need all forms of energy. We shouldn't be canceling out any form right now. I think the world will transition. The transition is unstoppable. It's just a question of the pace and trajectory of that transition. It's not the question of whether it's going to happen. It's a when and how it's done. And I think we heard that it's fit for purpose. It may not be one size fits all. I think each country has its own unique characteristics and challenges and attributes and strengths to play to as well. So I think each needs to go about it slightly differently. For us in India, we're very big in India. We're very excited. Yesterday was a very busy day. We had the privilege of being selected as the technical services provider, as you alluded to, Sri, with ONGC, to help ONGC with Mumbai High. It is a great privilege because Mumbai High is the biggest oil and gas field in India, and to be selected to be able to work alongside ONGC to help mitigate decline and help realize the full potential of that field to actually try to increase production, increase energy security for India, and reduce the level of imports. That's a good thing for the economy, as we heard Minister Puri talk about. So that was great. We also signed an MOU with ONGC to broaden our cooperation. We've worked with ONGC outside of India and Azerbaijan for many, many years. So we have a deep relationship with ONGC, and we want to take that to the next level about how other things we can work on together. For instance, OALP round 9 and 10. 10 was launched today, and we'll be partners with ONGC and with Reliance and BP together. We'll be jointly bidding on those blocks. So all forms of energy. Talked about gas. We're producing now a third of the gas production of India from our joint partnership with Reliance. It's been very successful, over 15 years of partnership, very, very close partnership. And we brought that gas on, and it's supplying 15% of the gas demand in India. And I think gas is here to stay. I remember going to COP26 in Glasgow, and as the minister said this morning, Mr. Puri said you couldn't talk about gas as transition fuel. You know, everyone wanted gas to be turned off, and I think, you know, we had the Russia-Ukraine war and other events in the world that I think people have now understood. You know, we do need gas, and it doesn't mean that the other things don't happen. Hydrogen will happen. Other biofuels. There's other things that low carbon fuels will happen. It's just a matter of time and transition. And in fact, in Brazil, as Magda talks about biofuels, we have a long history in Brazil as well. We had the BP Bunge partnership that we were producing sugarcane ethanol, and ethanol is blended into transport fuels in Brazil, as Magda said. And we completed the sale of the other 50%, so we bought out Bunge, so now it's called BP Bioenergia. And the reason why we did that was, we want to leverage biofuels, but we also want to think about the next level. Is there ethanol or alcohol to jet? Ethanol to jet, ethanol to SAF. I think there's a huge market for that, including India. So we see a lot of potential there. So it's all forms of energy. It's each goes. We can again play to our strengths, go about it differently in each geography, but we do need all forms of energy, particularly in an exciting place like India where the energy demand is tremendous.
Can I pick up on the sustainable aviation fuel aspect of the conversation as it relates to biofuel and ethanol? And in terms of the demand factor in this equation, is the global aviation industry on board with sustainable aviation fuel? Are there regulatory constraints that need to be overcome?
I think, for us, I don't know, Magda can answer for Petrobras. For us, I think SAF plays to our strengths. We have a big network. We've been supplying jet fuel, conventional jet, to many airports, many airlines. We have deep relationships over many, many decades. And obviously, so those relationships are there, those networks are there, those channels of distribution are there. We have the ability to produce SAF, or sustainable aviation fuel, at or near our refineries in a more conventional way right now using the HEFA-based technology. So putting that together for us at BP is a natural sort of evolution into transitioning. I think in terms of regulatory or legislative help, I think all kinds of transition businesses need some sort of support, whether it's fiscal support or regulatory support. And I think mandates, are the way that we can benefit from this as an industry. It's where governments put mandates in and say X amount of percent of your jet fuel needs to be blended with SAF. And when those mandates come through and airlines respond to those mandates, are incentivized to procure SAF, and as that increases, then that gives us greater confidence to be able to make the investments.
William, can you put any figures on the investment commitment and the production targets for SAF at BP?
Right now, we don't have any monetary commitments. We said we'd look into doing 2 or 3 HEFA-based SAF projects in the next decade, between now and 2030, to find 2 or 3 opportunities where we feel we have advantage and we can bring our technology, and there is the right incentives. And this morning, I think the session talked about these things have to be economically viable ultimately. Like we all want to transition, but we're public companies, we have shareholders, we have to manage returns, and so we have to make these new chains have to work economically. They have to work, and ultimately the product has to be affordable, right? That the airlines feel incentivized, that they can afford it, and they can justify the investment as well. So putting those chains together, we're looking at doing 2 to 3 potentially in this decade.
Thank you for that, William. Magda, if I can turn to you, how much will Petrobras invest in renewables and low carbon projects in the coming years, and what will be your main focus areas?
Yeah. The whole investment of Petrobras for the next 5 years is around $111 billion for the next 5 years. 15 of this amount is related to biofuels and electric projects. So, again, ethanol, biodiesel, co-processed new products, and also solar, hydrogen, and eolic. What is interesting to see is that Petrobras was the support to reach something that I think it's a successful model. We have so many different sources of energy that we could reach nowadays 50% of our primary energy mix being renewable. So this means you use a lot, not only the ethanol, but sugarcane bagasse biodiesel, hydro. So Brazil has several different sources of energy, providing us 50% of renewables in our energy mix. We are aiming in 2050 to reach 64. So I think this is a good example of how the need for sustainability in the past could change to a new name, which is energetic transition. So this role Brazil has since the beginning, since the insertion of the first molecule, renewable molecule up to now, and we are going towards 64, keeping the same model, insertion of different sources of energy and taking advantages of what we had in Brazil, which was hydro, plantation, soybean, sugar cane, corn. So all these products could help us to reach our goals. And nowadays, what we are considering in Petrobras is try to merge agriculture and the petroleum industry. So the agriculture providing seeds and different types of seeds that can bring to us the vegetable oil we need to make biofuels and also greener products. So this is Brazil, this is the way we do. And again, these allow us to reach 50% renewable in the primary energy mix and aim to reach 2050 with 64. It is a very good result when we consider that the whole world is still at 16% as an average in terms of renewable and aims to reach 2050 with 39, which was a number we reached in the past. So I think, again, looking at the Brazil story and what I heard in the previous panel, I think that India is doing the same way, is going the same way, and they are really providing a very good result to the Indian society. I was very impressed to see that they were willing to reach 20% blend in the gasoline with ethanol, which is the same Brazil did in the past, and we are we're changing from 27 to 30 our blends. We are also increasing our biofuel mandates. We are now with 14 biodiesel blended in the diesel. We are willing to reach 25, which is a huge amount. But again, we take advantage of what we have. So again, reinforce what was also said in the previous panel. We see that each country has its own solution. And in our case, we have the possibility of taking advantage of several different sources and energy, and we are doing this and aiming to increase all this amount towards 2050. Petrobras is part of this solution. We are now providing 31% of the whole primary energy used in Brazil. So around 1/3 of the whole primary energy Brazil uses is provided by Petrobras, and we are continuing going in this direction and investing to fulfill Brazilian needs the same way as I'm sure all state companies in India are trying to fulfilling the Indian needs of energy.
Thank you for that, Magda. And India faces a more challenging journey in terms of building sustainable energy solutions like ethanol and biofuel because of the sheer size of the population and the growing population compared to Brazil. And I just wanted to highlight again, you enumerated some would say ambitious targets, but realizable targets given Brazil's track record of pioneering sustainable energy solutions. 64% renewable target by 2050 for Brazil. Now, I wanted to go back to the remarks from the previous panel, President and CEO of Qatar Energy and Minister of Energy of Qatar, Syed Sherida Al-Kaabi. He said, leveraging hydrocarbons strategically so that renewables can scale. That's the priority. So if we could turn to Brazil, oil and gas production. Can you talk about the oil and gas production plans and how Petrobras plans to replenish its reserves, especially since gas is so central to
Yes.
the transition?
First of all, it's very important to say that for any society, energy should be affordable.
Yes.
And should be in Brazil, the petroleum from the pre-salt is a product very affordable for the Brazilian society. So we have very low cost to produce the petroleum. We have a lot of petroleum to be developed. We are humping up the Brazilian petroleum production up to 2030. And this is something that we have to be proud of. And this petroleum that will be the main source of resources to make the energy transition possible. That's why all these is together in Petrobras portfolio. So we are, again, going in this direction, putting 15% of our CAPEX in this, and we are increasing this amount.
Thank you, Magda. William, the challenge for gas production on the upstream side is reserve replenishment. A lot of the low-hanging fruit has gone. How challenging is it, despite the breakthroughs that we've seen in extraction technology, etc., how challenging is the geology and how challenging are the economics for from a reserve replacement point of view?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think the way we think about it, obviously, we all hope exploration is a little bit like, it's a little bit of a gamble, dare I say. So, you know, you can shoot seismic, you try to de-risk as much, but ultimately you have to get a drill bit down there and drill, and until you do that, you don't know for sure. You're right, some of the, let's say, the giant fields of the past, a lot of them have in many geographies been discovered. That's not to say there isn't a giant field or giant fields out there still yet to be found. I'm sure there are around the world, but it is harder and probably in deeper water and more conditions that are more challenging to make economic. So what we tend to focus on in BP is now saying, how do we make smaller pools? And I think India has the same challenge here with a mature basin, is that, you know, smaller pools, how do you make those economic? How do you tie those smaller pools back into existing infrastructure? Because you have some infrastructure that's been built for quite some time, and those reservoirs have now been depleted and are quite mature, and you have quite a lot of ullage. You have ullage, which means space. You have space inside of facilities, pipelines, all kinds of infrastructure, including LNG plants or regasification, but whatever it may be, there's ullage. And so how do you maximize the use of that ullage so you don't have to make new investments into facilities, which are very costly, but more importantly, it takes time. So transition is about how do we fuel the near term so that those transition businesses have the space to then to stand up.
Where does the cost of production, extraction costs stand right now, and where do you think that they're going?
Well, I think it varies. So I couldn't give you a number that goes around the world because every place is different. Like Magda said, in some places where there's big volume in the pre-salt, the production costs can be quite low. In other places, it varies. But the most important thing is more of a mindset. You know, some of the big oil companies were used to going elephant hunting, finding the big resource, and now it's sort of like you need to move the mindset down to saying, how do we make smaller pools, which in the past we might have passed up, make those economic? Because in these mature basins, that's what we need to progress through. We need to make those work, okay? Tie those back, I said, quickly to infrastructure, quick payback, get those hydrocarbons or that gas, natural gas in particular, online as quickly as we can and make those economic. So that's the new dynamic. It's a mindset shift.
So it's about sweating the assets. And if you were to look around the global portfolio, or if we're to talk about new prospects and new exploration, new areas of exploration, what are the most exciting prospects that you can identify globally, William?
Again, it'll be very bespoke to everyone has their favorite areas that, you know, for us, for BP, we're most excited about, I would use the word incumbency. So where do we have incumbent positions where we understand the geology, we understand the subsurface, we have deep relationships, like in India, where we've been here for many decades. We have close relationships with the government, good supportive policy, very strong partnerships that we rely on. We understand the supply chain, and we can put that together. Rather than going into a new area or a brand new basin or drill a wildcat well in a new country we haven't operated in before, you know, how do we, as you say, sweat the assets, but actually, how do we find more resource? How do we progress more resource and investment in basins we already understand, or in countries we already have deep relationships? I think that's where, again, we're talking about playing to your strengths. That's where we think that's how we would play to our strengths.
Can I add?
Of course, Magda, please.
In terms of Brazil, we still have lots of areas to be developed, but we also have new frontiers to go after and to study and to drill. Besides this, our geology is quite similar to African geology. I mean, the Atlantic margin of Brazil is quite similar to the Atlantic margin of Africa. So this is a close relationship, and it is something that we are always looking at. Besides this, India has just announced the 10th bidding round. So, in these areas, we see a lot of new frontiers to be explored, mainly in deep water and ultra deep water, which is our DNA. So, yes, we are interested in looking at the 10th bidding round of India. We will welcome this initiative. India put big blocks to be explored, and Petrobras, yes, it is interested in seeing what they are providing us in terms of new blocks and new areas and new frontiers. In Brazil, we have a lot. We're also looking at other areas, as I mentioned, in the Atlantic margin of Africa. And after 2030, we will need to replace reserves in a good amount because we are producing 3 million barrels a day now. We are exporting almost half of these. And this put us a great commitment with Brazil in our shoulders. So petroleum is now the first product to be exported by Brazil. It is the first product being exported in 2024. It will be next year as well. So the need to replacement of these to replace these reserves is very huge, and we have to respond to the Brazilian society, making our work, or let's say, very helpful to the Brazilian society.
Thank you for that, Magda. And clearly, you are looking outside prospects in Brazil. You say you're going to bid for acreage under the new bidding round. So that's two major companies that are participating in India's upstream business. The time is up, but I was hoping I could just squeeze in one quick question to William. And forgive me, it's a topical question, and it pertains to US energy policy. And can you share with us, William, any insights as to whether BP in Marcellus, Permian, or the Bakken is embracing the drill, baby, drill policy that Trump has talked about? It's not so easy, is it? You can't just flick a switch, and the economics need to make sense.
I'd answer it this way, Siri. I just think it's early days in the new administration. We're all waiting to see how things evolve. We've seen some executive orders come out. We'll see how some of the new cabinet positions, the new secretaries of these cabinets are cabinet positions. What new policy comes out? So it's early days. It's kind of too early to judge. And I know people are jumping on the sort of the slogan of "drill, baby, drill." I think more importantly for us is we're a company. We're apolitical. We're apolitical. We have to as does Petrobras. We have to live through different administrations, different jurisdictions, changing government, not just in the U.S. but around the world in geographies we operate in. We're 80+ countries, so we have to weather through any administration and any change. So it's early days. I would say, based on history and what Donald Trump in his previous administration was pushing for is cutting the cycle time. Cutting through permitting, cutting through bureaucracy, making decisions more quickly, more engagement with business. I think those things are positives to look forward to.
Does it matter that the Gulf of Mexico might become the Gulf of America?
I think we've all have already had to embrace that, and we already see signage and things change the Gulf of America now. So we'll follow suit.
William, I'm very grateful. Thank you very much, and Magda, thank you very much for your insights. It's been another very stimulating, very informative, and enlightening panel discussion. Thank you to both of you.